first little programs. It's a little master class, and it's the No Time Bucket List Plan for busy professionals and how to accomplish your biggest dreams in just 6 minutes a day using the goal formula. And I use 6 minutes because I'm an attorney. And if you're familiar with how most attorneys bill, it's on either 6 or 15-minute increments. Some of them do 10 minutes, but usually 6 or 15. 6 is because it's 1/10 of an hour. And they can find pretty much anything to do in 6 minutes. So 6 minutes is all it takes to start. Now, your workout's probably going to be more than 6 minutes after you get used to it. But my Duolingo is still usually right about 6 minutes a day. Okay. When we get to know each other a little better, maybe I'll tell you where I do my Duolingo. Maybe that was a good hint. And then my workouts were much shorter, and then I increased the time, and then they got a little too long. Now I've chopped it down to about a half hour to 45 minutes, and it's more of a maintenance plan than it was the growth plan. So starting off with 6 minutes, I was training for a 5K because I was doing a bucket list program, and a couple of bucket listers that were in my program said they wanted to do a 5K, and I said, that's super, have fun. They said, you don't want to do it? I'm like, no, not a runner. And then about 2 days later, of course, my bucket list coach mentality set in, and I just signed up for a race. I sent them the link. I said, all right, I'm in. And I started with running. I think I did maybe a 1/10 of a mile. I didn't even think I did a quarter mile, maybe a quarter mile on the treadmill. Not very fast at all. And it's probably 6 minutes for a quarter of a mile. And when most people that run 8 to 10 minute miles when they do the distance races. So that was literally 6 minutes. So you think about it, and then the next week I upped it to like a half a mile, then a 0.75 miles, then a mile, then a mile. I just kept increasing it week over week. Sometimes I hit a little rough spot where I couldn't go further. So I kept that distance for 2 weeks, but I had a schedule. And I said, okay, my 5K is here, but I had to have an endpoint to start. Know your destination before you're going to go. Know where you're going to go. Know when you have to get your goal. So, goal skills. You got to know how to set goals and what they are and all that good stuff. Smart goals. My name is Marty Elberg, and I am a bucket list coach. We always had family dinners. My dad usually cooked. My mom worked a little bit later. She got home a little later, and my dad was his own boss. But it was very quiet because the news was always on. It was always right at 6 o'clock, and the 6 o'clock news was on. I grew up in Iowa on a farm. So you're calling from Ohio, so you may have an idea of that 6 o'clock dinner time every day. Meat and potatoes, almost every meal. Some other vegetables, depending on what was in the garden.
What were some of the conversations? What were some of the topics that you guys would talk about? I mean, I know you said that it was pretty quiet, everybody glued to whatever the news.
It was literally, shut up, I'm listening to the news. That was my dad. There was no real conversation other than if my mom wanted to ask something, perhaps that would happen. But usually it was, if we did have a conversation, it was about school or one of the many activities that we were involved in, my brother and I. So,
very cool. Very cool. And so, I mean, you're a bucket list coach, right? So I feel like most people, go through their whole life sort of saying, I've got this stuff on my bucket list, and they never do it. And then you have the people that have goals and aspirations to, even just start their own company, right? So you've kind of combined both of them, two things that a lot of people say they're going to do or want to do, and they never accomplish that. Do you feel like there's anything in your upbringing that, sort of propelled you toward wanting to go out and, achieve whatever it is that you put your mind to?
Well, and I don't mean to speak harshly of my dad. He was awesome.
Yeah.
But he was a stern, like, raw kind of guy. He said what he said, and that's what was that was the rule. Whatever he said went. but he left a corporate job because he was tired of bouncing around all the different towns. He used to manage a meat processing plant. It was a grain facility for the processing plant, and they would bounce him around across the country. And we started. I think my brother must have been in elementary school, and I was just starting school, and they were going to send us off to another place. And he said, "No, I'm done. I'm going to start my own business." So he became an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
He was a carpenter, so he did great carpentry work. And so that was one of the things that really got to me when I figured out that I actually take after my dad,
Mm-hmm.
maybe more than my mom, because I started my own business. I've been my own boss for 15 years as an attorney, and then I started this bucket list journey about 4 years ago. And I would have to attribute a lot of the bucket list stuff to my mom. She always encouraged me, go live your life, go do what you want to do. Don't do what anybody expects you to do. Just be happy. And I got that from my mom, but I also got the entrepreneurial side, I believe, from my dad. My mom had the same job for 35 years working for the state. She taught nurses across the state. So if you go to any hospital in Iowa, she probably taught
Wow.
a nurse or two or three on the floor.
Yeah, very
So,
cool. Very cool.
yeah.
I've got to ask, are you an avid news watcher yourself as well? Like your
News
dad?
watcher?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
No.
No. I used to watch it, and I was starting to get a little bit too heavily
Yeah.
invested and involved in politics. And funny story, I was yelling at the TV about 10 years ago, and my wife said that's enough. You just can't. You're done. And you're right. This is ridiculous. If I'm not going to run for an office, I'm just going to stop watching the news. I'll still hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no escaping it. Social media, friends, my wife, she's always watching things, but she doesn't yell at the TV like I do. So I stopped watching the news. I stopped watching politics. I stopped watching the news. And then come to find out, there's a lot of people that actually suggest you shouldn't watch the news.
Yeah.
And I follow that as well.
I am one of them as well. Yes.
Teach people not to watch the news.
I love it. And why is that? Why do you actually incorporate that into your teachings? I'm curious.
We're bombarded with so much negativity all day long from our own brains. Mm-hmm. Because we wake up and we say, oh, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. That's just because that's how our brains are mostly programmed. We have to reprogram them every day. So when you wake up and you read the daily news, it's 90% negative. Now, if you jump to the good stuff, you have to sift through a whole bunch of bad stuff to get there. Mm-hmm. But if you watch the news on TV, they're going to bombard you with negativity, maybe until the last 3 minutes, if you can even stand it. So to be positive, you have to have some positivity and eliminate as much negativity as you can. And you've all heard it. If it bleeds, it leads. And that's what they go for. So
yeah, couldn't agree more. So talk about your journey. Did you start out wanting to be a bucket list coach? Was that kind of what you put your foot in the water and said, this is what I'm going to do? Or was there something else that came before that kind of led into that?
I don't think it really existed until about 4 years ago. A guy named Travis Bell, the bucket list guy, was traveling around the world doing keynote speeches. And he met Brad Sugars, who is the owner of Action Coach, business coaching, largest business coaching company in the world. And he said, why don't you put a coaching program together, Brad? And Travis said, really? Okay. So he did. And I was one of the first coaches that he recruited. Since then, we've kind of not parted ways in a bad way, but just he's kind of doing his way, I'm doing my way. And that's fantastic. I still talk to him and we get along perfectly. So I give him a lot of credit for everything that I teach, but I teach a bit different than he does, coach. But as far as growing up to want to do it, no, I don't think so. But I did go to college as a recreation major.
Okay.
So, it's everybody kind of laughs, recreation, haha. But it's a really a management degree where you're programming and doing things that recreate people. That's
Mhm.
recreation, is recreate yourself. It's take your weekend off, make sure you're doing a lot of physical activity or something that you enjoy doing. So I actually went to college for that. So I guess in a way, yeah, I always wanted to be a bucket list coach,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it just
And
kind of went away like everybody else's dreams and aspirations
exactly.
of
And
having fun.
how did you get back to that, right? Like, how did you kind of come full circle back around to, um, you know, getting back into that enjoyment? Because I think a lot of people, they'll start their businesses, they start their companies based on, their past history, their experiences. Maybe they have some resources available to them, in that specific category, but maybe they're absolutely miserable, right? So, you know, I mean, it sounds to me like being a bucket list coach would be pretty freaking amazing, right? Being able to, probably experience a lot of these things yourselves, but, help make sure other people are experiencing those things as well. How did you, I guess, have that thought that this is what I'm going to go in and do?
Epiphany, I
Yes,
guess.
exactly.
Well, so I really lived my life like my mom had hoped I would. I've traveled around. I've lived in lots of different cities across the United States. I lived in Europe, did a study abroad program, stayed with some relatives in Norway for a couple of weeks at a time, friends in Paris, or not Paris, Lyon for a week. So I've done a lot of that. And then I came back to reality and got married and got a divorce and went to law school because of my divorce and started my law practice because of all that. And I was still living my life. So it's not that I was completely miserable, but I was struggling when I moved to Florida. So had my law practice in Iowa, then I moved to Florida, and that was 9 years, a little over 9 years ago now. And it's not the same. Starting a law practice in Iowa, a tiny little town, 3,000 people, I literally put a sign on the window and the building, and people came in. That's it. I golfed, I knew people, and they just started coming in. Moved to Florida. There are a few more attorneys than there were in Iowa. We had 3 in our little town. So I was struggling, and finally realized I needed somebody to help me. And that's when I hired my coach. So I hired my action coach. That's how I met, Brad Sugars and Juan Ortega. He's my business coach. Have been for 8 years now. So 7.5 years, I guess. And went to a business conference 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago. And that's when I met Trav Bell. He gave a keynote and had us do an exercise that I have people do. He's like, okay, who has a bucket list? Raise your hand. About half the raise their hands. All right, who has it written down? And then it was about 5% of the people that actually raised their hand that had it written down. How many people are working on something that's an item that's on your bucket list? And half the hands went down from that. So it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. Here's all the categories, pick one. Okay, great. He's like, okay, take action on it right now. You have 10 minutes to do something on that list right now. If not now, when? Someday may never come. Someday, well, some days not a day of the week. So when are you going to do it? You're going to do it right now. So right then, I've been putting this trip off to Club Med. Always wanted to go to Club Med, really since I was in college. I heard about it because part of recreation. It's like, that would be fantastic to work there. Friend had mentioned it, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to take a week and a half off of work. I was really busy and miserable at work because I was doing a lot of divorces. And it's like, all right, we're going to do this. So I sent my wife a text. I said, we're going to go on Club Med, and looked at the tickets and said, here we go, book it. And we did. And it was a fantastic vacation, like one of my best vacations ever. And just because of that moment, I did that.
And And
Since then, I'm like, I'm teaching this to people.
I,
I'm gonna do this.
I'm curious, how long from that point when you said we're going to do this till the time when you went on the trip?
5 months.
5 months.
It was
Okay.
planned. My friends were going at the end of July. I believe this was in like February, March.
Got
When I
it.
was at the conference, so it was
Yep.
plenty of time to plan it,
Yep. Yep.
and we could afford it. We were at that level of income that I could afford trips. I just didn't know that I could afford to take that much time off or want to take that much time off. So that's really what I'm looking at.
Yeah. And when you, so walk us through, I guess, the coaching process when you are coaching someone to start thinking about their bucket list. um what does that start out like? Is it the exact same thing where you think about these different categories and you write down what you want to do? I mean, is that how you basically get things started? Is that?
Yeah, and it's group coaching. So it's really a lot of collaboration, a lot of accountability within the group. I don't do individual coaching, but yeah, the first thing to get people to realize is tomorrow's not promised, and we've got an exercise to do that, and it just really brings to light how much of your time you've used. So I've got a graph of 80 years, and the average life expectancy for men is like 79, 82 for women. So we just do 80. It's just easier visual, and scribble off all the years you've been alive. And for a lot of us in our 50s, some in the 60s, they say, oh, wow, yeah, you're right. And the line of work I'm in, estate planning and probate, I see people die of all ages. So death is abundant. It's you're not going to escape it. I often say the only guarantees in life are death and taxes, and I know there are a lot of people that don't pay their taxes. So let's just go with that.
Yeah. No, and I heard an interesting, I guess, mindset a couple of days ago, actually, where they were talking about sort of the same thing, like recognizing how much longer you have left. And they were specifically talking about, um, visiting your parents, right? So everyone thinks, my parents have always been there, there are, of course, they don't normally think that, they're going to pass away, but kind of going through that exact same analogy. And if you're not right next door to your parents, it's not how many years you have left with your parents. It's how many more times do you have left with your parents? Like if you have to travel to go see your parents, maybe you do that once a year and they're going to live 12 more years. You have 12 more times with your parents, right? So it's a really, really powerful way to think about, what, time is fleeting and it's not always going to be there. So yeah, it's interesting when you kind of reframe things in that, in that mindset or in that light.
Absolutely.
So talk about some of the, what are some of the successes that you've had, with some of your clients? Like, I'm sure that you probably have people that are, coming in and they're, all strung out, stressed out. They're, worried about everything. And then, they get into this process, and does it get lighter? Talk about a little bit of that transformation, what that looks
So
like.
another one of the things that people need to realize is we all have the same amount of time. So we talk about, okay, why do we need to do it now? And I don't have time to do all this. I don't have time to do that. I don't have time to do that. So we really talk about time and how much time we all have. So we kind of break that down. Then it's breaking it down into the different categories. So yeah, people are stressed out, or they just don't think they have time to have a bucket list or do the bucket list or do the things they have on their bucket list that are in their mind. They haven't written it down yet. So just teaching all of these little tricks of actually getting things accomplished is one thing. And what happens is they end up transferring it into their job. And now they're using some of the same tools to work on their job as they are on their own lives. So we find that they're working on their personal goals, their professional, their financial, and their community goals. Okay? Community is one of the most important things. And most of the stressed out people are isolated. And
Mhm.
most of the stressed out, isolated people I know are attorneys. They have
Mhm.
contact with their clients, they have contact with judges, they have contact with their clients, and they probably don't like 90% of all of those groups that I just, all of the
Yeah.
people in the groups that I just mentioned. They might have a family, but they're working long hours. They've got the financial success that they're looking for, but they're just saying, wow, there's something missing. What's missing in my life? And that's what we help with, is just pointing out so many different categories. I've got a bucket list roadmap, 12 or 10 different categories that really spark people's imagination on what they're missing. I can't tell you what your purpose is in life, and I don't even really like starting with purpose, because purpose is such a huge conceptual, well, it's a huge conceptual word. It's a huge conceptual idea. What is purpose? Well, purpose is the meaning of life. What's the meaning of life? Well, I don't know. Okay, let's just start with happiness. What makes you happy?
Mhm.
And then we'll build from there, because everybody can think of something that helps them get happy, but happy is fleeting, right? I can be happy about my brand new phone, but as soon as I'm used to it, I'm not really happy about it anymore. Now it's just it's a tool, right?
Mhm.
So happiness is fleeting. Then we get on a deeper level, maybe we go to satisfaction. So what satisfies me in life? What gives me more satisfaction than I had, or new satisfaction? What if I didn't even know I liked to dance? And one of my categories, it leads into express yourself. Maybe it's dancing, maybe it's pottery or painting, something you used to do when you were a kid, or something you just always wanted to do and just never did, and people told you that was dumb. Why waste your time doing that? Maybe that's what's going to give you some satisfaction. That might lead to that deeper purpose.
Mhm. And as you're going through these different categories, these different stages, is it sort of like, I kind of got the feeling like, I don't know, I don't know if I want to say like it's a checkoff list, but um you approach it from a high level, and once you have achieved that, it's sort of like check off, now I go to the next level? Or is it sort of like all of these things sort of add up into defining and filtering what should be on your bucket list based on sort of your interests over here?
Yeah,
Is
kind
it
of the latter. Yeah, the
okay?
latter. So I'll just read off the list. Okay, so it's build relationships, it's unplugged, community, crazy kid stuff, exercise and challenges, travel and adventure, leave a legacy, insecurities and fear, start, stop, do more, and toys, treasures, and timber. Now we can fit a whole bunch of different ideas into each one of those categories, especially when we break them down and really talk about what they mean.
Mhm.
And I would say I work on 2 to 3 items a day, or maybe 2 to 3 a week. I'm learning Spanish, so I do Duolingo every day.
Mhm.
I just got back from a trip to Nashville where we toured 3 bourbon distilleries, which was on my bucket list to do for a couple of years, and we got that ticked off.
Mhm.
So working on a couple different ones at a time. I'm in the probably the best physical shape I've been in at least since my 20s, at least since I was in the army and played rugby and at college, and that that era. And I'm 54 now. I've never been able to, if we're going to numbers, I guess, never been able to bench over 200 pounds. I weigh well, now I weigh 230, 240, depending on the day. But I do 225 now. And that was an amazing bucket list challenge that I wasn't even looking at that number. I was just looking for get into good physical condition. And then I just transitioned to this whole, all right, let's just do weights for a year and see what happens. And I did. And it's just been fantastic. So you start incorporating and layering more and more of these different categories. And I'm shocked at all the things that I've done in the last 4 years, where I used to be everybody used to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe how much you've done. Prior to the 4 years, they would say that. Now they're like, what's next? What are you doing next?
Yeah.
Like, oh, jump in my course. Let's go.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you find that a lot of people struggle? Obviously, I'm sure that probably one of the main excuses we'll say is that I don't have time, right? So how do you show people that there is actually time? Again, you were a busy attorney and had different cases going on and all of that. And I'm sure that there's a lot of work, a lot of research, all of that you're doing with that. So how do you go from having a busy schedule to being able to incorporate these other things in your life? Is there a process or a step?
I love that question because I brought it up earlier. So one of my first little programs, it's a little master class, and it's the No Time Bucket List Plan for busy professionals and how to accomplish your biggest dreams in just 6 minutes a day using the goal formula. And I use 6 minutes because I'm an attorney. And if you're familiar with how most attorneys bill, it's on either 6 or 15-minute increments. Some of them do 10 minutes, but usually 6 or 15. 6 is because it's 1/10 of an hour. And they can find pretty much anything to do in 6 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So 6 minutes is all it takes to start. Now, your workout's probably going to be more than 6 minutes after you get used to it. But my Duolingo is still usually right about 6 minutes a day. Okay. When we get to know each other a little better, maybe I'll tell you where I do my Duolingo.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that was a good hint. And then my workouts were much shorter, and then I increased the time, and then they got a little too long. Now I've chopped it down to about a half hour to 45 minutes, and it's more of a maintenance plan than it was the growth plan. So starting off with 6 minutes, I was training for a 5K because I was doing a bucket list program, and a couple of bucket listers that were in my program said they wanted to do a 5K, and I said, that's super, have fun. They said, you don't want to do it? I'm like, no, not a runner. And then about 2 days later, of course, my bucket list coach mentality set in, and I just signed up for a race. I sent them the link. I said, all right, I'm in. And I started with running. I think I did maybe a 1/10 of a mile. I didn't even think I did a quarter mile, maybe a quarter mile on the treadmill. Not very fast at all. And it's probably 6 minutes for a quarter of a mile.
Mm-hmm.
And when most people that run 8 to 10 minute miles when they do the distance races. So that was literally 6 minutes. So you think about it, and then the next week I upped it to like a half a mile, then a 0.75 miles, then a mile, then a mile. I just kept increasing it week over week. Sometimes I hit a little rough spot where I couldn't go further, so I kept that distance for 2 weeks. But I had a schedule, and I said, okay, my 5K is here, but I had to have an endpoint to start.
Mm-hmm.
Know your destination before you're going to go. Know where you're going to go. Know when you have to get your goal. So goal skills. You got to know how to set goals and what they are and all that good stuff.
Yep.
Smart goals.
Yep. Yep. So is that how you would approach a lot of things? Is know where the end is, and then essentially reverse engineer. Like, I've got to be able to run 3 miles by 3 months from now. So, I need to by the end of the first month, I need to be able to run a mile, and the second month.
That's exactly what I did.
Yeah,
exactly what I did. And it's really taking small steps. If you say, hey, let's go run a 5K tomorrow, like, yeah, have fun. I'll walk. Maybe. I don't even know if I want to walk 3 miles.
Yeah.
Most people would say that, right? But if you say, okay, in 3 months, 4 months, and this is how we're going to do it, we're going to break it down into small chunks. It's the like Darren Hardy's compound effect. I love that book because I love the way, the methodology he teaches you how to achieve goals. And that really is like I trained for the 5K. It's just repeating it and adding a little bit over time. It's the Duolingo, 6 minutes a day. It's the compound effect. It's not a massive amount. I'm not taking day-long courses or hour-long courses, but my Spanish now is so much better than it was almost a year ago that I started. I
Yeah.
took 2 years of Spanish in college. I don't remember any of it. No, I do. I remember dos cervezas, por favor, donde es el baño, or el
Yeah. All the
baño.
important. Yeah. All
Yeah,
the
all the
important
important
things.
things. Those are the things I remembered going into Duolingo. So yeah, and
Yeah.
this is not an ad to Duolingo. I'm not I don't get anything for it. Maybe I should look into that,
There you go.
but being an affiliate.
Yeah. Um, when you sort of use this analogy with your phone, right? So when you first get your new phone, it's brand new, I'm excited about it, and then after a while it sort of wears off, right? So uh, I can imagine that this might be the same thing with having your bucket list as well, where yeah, I'm going to do this, I'm excited, I'm going to train for the 5K, and month goes by maybe where you're doing it, but then it starts to lose interest. Do you have any secrets or any advice on stick to itiveness, making sure that you follow through with whatever the goal is or whatever it is that you set out to do?
Yeah. So one of it is group accountability. That's why we do the group programs. The other is you have to have a good why. If you don't have a why, which is why am I doing this? Why do I even want to accomplish this? Then that stick to itiveness. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I've heard that before, but stick to itiveness, I love that word. It can go away. But if you have a strong why, then it it can stick with you because you can always dig down and find that why. And we have an exercise on whys as well. And just for example, I wanted to get in shape. I was way overweight, probably 40, 50 pounds overweight. And I already had a couple heart issues. And it's always said that, yeah, I'm going to get in shape again. Yeah, I'm going to get in shape again. And then all of a sudden, we were going to have a grandbaby. And I was like, oh, wow. I can either be the fat grandpa that can't get off the couch or doesn't want to get off the couch to play with his grandkids, or I could be the one throwing them around, beating them up, chasing them all around. And I decided I wanted to be the latter. So I got off my butt and I started working out. Started with walking around the block, just like the compound effect. Started with just walking down the block, walking with my wife, walking a little bit here and there. And then started bike riding. So we interchanged the bike rides with the walks, and then did a 12-mile bike ride challenge. Then I did a 52-mile bike ride challenge, and then I started doing these 5Ks, and it just hasn't stopped. So my fitness journey has been 3 years. And everybody says, "Oh my God, you look amazing." I'm like, "Yeah, it's been 3 years of hard work, but I do, and I feel amazing, and that's really what it's about. And I feel amazing, and I get to go play with my grandkids. He's 3 now, turning 3 next week or 2 weeks, and then another granddaughter that's she's oh, wow. In October she'll be a year, so I get to run around with them, and I don't have to be the fat grandpa. So
Yep. No, I
I'm the
love it.
fit grandpa. The
I
fit
love it.
grandpa, not
I
the
love
fat
it.
grandpa.
You made me think a minute ago when you were explaining your why, right? And I think a lot of people have those thoughts that sort of shoot through their head, and a lot of times that's all that they do. All that happens is just shoots through your head, but you actually, you know, sort of recognized that and dwelled on, I don't want to be the guy that can't keep up with their grandkid, right? I want to be, they're chasing. So
Mhm.
do you have any thoughts on being able to recognize those shooting thoughts that maybe you might just be overlooking, that you might not ever recognize? Any thoughts on being able to pick up on those things that maybe your subconscious is telling you, or that you thought of over and over again, but never really thought of doing anything with?
Yeah, I think I'm following you. So the first thing is write your goals down. If you don't write them down, then they are just a fleeting thought. That's it. That's all they are. So that's going to help with your stick to itiveness.
There it is again.
is writing your goal down and writing it down every day. Maybe you're not going to write your whole list down, but the goals you're working on today or working on for the next quarter or the next 6 weeks, but whatever your time frame you want to use, 90 days. Write those down every day. Write them down 2 times a day. Write them down 3 times a day. Write them down when you're having a breakdown. Write those goals down. And when you write the goal down, that's something you want to accomplish. Whether it's a fitness goal, a personal goal, if you want to learn how to dance, learn Spanish, whatever it is, whatever you're working on. And then, ask yourself, why do I want to do this? My first thought when I wanted to get, fit was, I want to look good. I want to look better. I want to wear smaller jeans. I don't want to struggle when I'm walking a half a block to go get lunch. I don't want to have any more heart issues. Those are all really good whys, but that was not the driving why that kept me going through an hour and a half painful workouts and then being sore for 3 days. And it was really literally, I want to be the fit grandpa, period. That was the deep why. So we have an exercise. It's if you heard of the 5 whys or 6, some people even say 7. So your first answer, okay, why? Second answer, why? And then we dig deeper. And it's more than just saying why. It's really digging at the first answer. And then when you get to that deep one, now it's not just a fleeting thought. The first one is, I want to look good. Okay, great. It was too much work. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I get it. That, which is what it was for 10 years prior. I was like, get in shape, whatever. But
Yeah. How do you I guess the best way that I can phrase this is, how do you combat the shiny object syndrome, which I can imagine that, having this list of different things that you want to do, that could get to be pretty extensive. And how do you prioritize? I mean, if you're the type of person, like I like to try everything. I like to, get out there and experience as much as I possibly can. And same thing with me. Obviously I have my career, I have the things that I'm doing, and, having enough time to be able to do everything you want to do. How do you prioritize those bucket list items to be able to say, okay, that's the next one I'm going to do? Any thoughts there?
It's the biggest why is the one you're going to do first, which is why fitness has been on the top of my list for about 3 years. Purchasing real estate has been on my list for a long time. We just closed yesterday on a 3-unit property.
Congratulations.
So that's the start of our real estate empire. So our leave a legacy. So whether we get to empire or just enough units that we're producing passive income, that's fantastic. But I had to start somewhere. So that was a big one. That was a long-term goal. We've been looking for 2 or 3 years, and then finally just all the circumstances lined up, and it's like, okay, we're just going to do this. It's not exactly what I was looking at, but it fit our needs at the time, and that's why we did it. So but had I not even had that on the horizon, I might have just said, oh well, I'll just go rent another place or whatever I was doing. But it's been on my list. It's something I write down every day, and it's there. It's just like when you I don't know if that's exactly what we were getting at, but when you buy a white car, you see all the white cars. You're like, oh my gosh, I didn't know there were so many white cars. It's because it's in the front of your mind. You're thinking about it because you just bought one. It's the same thing when you write something down, and that's how you can keep focused on the goal that you're working on. And you might get a new one, like just for example, the distillery tour was not really at the top of my list, but I had some friends, they're getting married in at the end of the month, and it was going to go do a little whiskey tour then. But another friend, it was his birthday weekend last weekend, and he said, well, it's my birthday weekend and we're doing this and this. I'm like, all right, I'll do that. I'll cut my trip short for the wedding, and just go for the wedding in a day before, day after, instead of doing the whiskey tour then. And it worked out. So shiny object or having your goals written down So when an opportunity comes up, you can say, yeah, I'm going to do that because it's written down. And now I'm looking at it and I want to do it. Those are for the things that come along. So you can still have some shiny object syndrome. It works just as long as you've got your goals written down. And the whiskey tour is not something I write down every day. It's just on my bucket list. It's written down on my bucket list of travel adventures. So it's there, and I knew it was there, and an opportunity came up, and I snatched it.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. And do you have like I guess a celebration, if you will, when you get to cross something off the list? I mean, is that part of it as well? Just having that, I guess, that reward of being able to, check something off at that point?
It depends. It depends on what it is. A lot of them are ongoing, but that one, it was great. We celebrated while we were there, I guess. So I was just enjoying it, enjoying getting home, going, yeah, all right, I did that. That was good.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Marty, this is really, really interesting. If people wanted to learn more about you, the bucket list consulting, what would be the best way to reach out and get in touch or learn more?
All right. If they are on Instagram, it's Bucket List Coach, or I think it's Marty Elberg, Bucket List Coach, MARTYELB as in boy, ERG, Bucket List Coach. And as soon as you type in Marty Elberg, it should pop up. If you're on Facebook, same thing. Otherwise, you can email me at marty@bucketlistcoach.club, not .com, bucketlistcoach.club.
Very cool.
And
yeah, this is.
You can DM me goal, GOAL. Just DM me goal, and I'll know exactly what it's for, and I'll ask you how you heard about me, and I'll get you hooked up with the free masterclass of the Bucket List Masterclass.
Love it. Love it. Marty, this is really, really cool. And I can definitely see how incorporating this into your daily routines is going to, make you a happier person, a more engaged person, right? Like, and you had your fitness challenge or your fitness goals, which that pretty well, I would imagine, allows you to do pretty well any of the other bucket list things, on your list as well. So I can definitely see how this can be a great motivation for a lot of people to be able to do more than what they feel they can do today. So I love it.
Absolutely. If I can do it, they can do it.
Love it.